Can you see and hear us?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Ward. Can we pick up the topic of litigation support, please? In paragraph 42 of your witness statement, you tell us that your understanding was that if ARQ data was required, it would be supplied in accordance with the contract, and that if a supporting witness statement was needed, this would also be supplied in accordance with the contract, and we would be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then if we just look at the paragraph 56 of your witness statement, please, which is on page 20, if that can be brought up. Page 20. Paragraph 56, second from the top. You say in the second sentence, as casework manager, I had little involvement with prosecution witnesses, aside from liaising with Fujitsu's prosecution support team. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so you weren't involved in or interested in the substance of what the prosecution witnesses were saying?
No.
Irrespective of whether they came from Fujitsu or otherwise?
Correct.
Can we look, please, at FUJ 0012 2197? If we scroll down, please. And keep going. And keep going. And keep going. Just scroll up, please. And scroll on. And scroll on, please. And keep going. Keep going. And keep going. And keep going. Keep going. Right. We can see, if we just scroll to the bottom, please, the start of an email chain not involving you. And if we scroll up, not involving you, yes, and then scroll up. Right, so can we go to the end of the email chain, please? And scroll up. Thank you. If we just take the top of the email, which is on the next page, from you, can you see that?
Yep.
Subject of ARQ request, dated March 2006, and scroll down. You say all, sorry for the length of this email and the high volume of requests attached. If we just scroll up again to see who the all was. Can you see it under the to section, it simply says Fujitsu?
Yep.
Was that a group email address?
It was,
yeah. Can you now remember who was within it or not?
So 2006, I would guess it would be Nina Lowther, Pete Saul, maybe Penny Thomas. maybe Andy Dunks.
Okay, thank you. Scroll back down to the substance then. Both of the above requests relate to cases where the Post Office are being challenged about the accuracy of the Horizon system. You're already aware of the case at Torquay Road and have provided data. In the cases of Marine Drive and Torquay Road, which you've previously provided responses, I'd like to sound out the possibility of someone at Fujitsu providing a formal witness statement along the lines of attached, provided by Bill Mitchell in one of our criminal cases. Whilst Marine Drive and Torquay Road are not criminal matters, given the allegations being made by postmasters, I'm sure you all agree it is very much in both ourselves and Fujitsu's interests to challenge the allegations and provide evidence that the system is not to blame for the losses provided. Whilst it may not be a statement that you, Penny, or Nina can provide, I'm sure there must be somebody who can. Just stopping there. What were the mutual interests of the Post Office and Fujitsu that you were referring to?
To prove that the Horizon system was working correctly.
Why was it in your interest to prove that the system was working correctly and that sub-postmasters were wrongly blaming it for losses?
Well, I can see now, with the benefit of hindsight, that it was a very one-sided view. At the time, certainly in the security team in terms of criminal cases, there weren't any cases, Horizon integrity challenges or whatever.
Can you keep your voice up a little bit, please?
Sorry. In terms of cases in security, there weren't any many Horizon cases that I was aware of.
Any or many?
Well, going back to 2006, I can't recall exactly now, but I don't think there were any. Obviously,
I'll come back to that answer in a moment, but why does the fact that there weren't any or many challenges nonetheless mean that it's in your mutual interest to prove any challenges as being wrong?
I agree, it's a poor choice of words.
Is it a poor choice of words?
Yeah,
i.e. you meant something else, but you've expressed yourself badly?
I've expressed myself badly.
Hold on, let me just finish the question, Mr. Ward. Poor choice of words means that you didn't intend what the words mean. You intended something else, but you've expressed yourself badly by the words you've selected. Is that what you mean?
I've expressed myself badly.
What did you mean?
Well, I just wanted to do the right thing by ensuring that we were able to show that the system was working correctly.
Would you agree that it would have been in Fujitsu's interest to show that the system was working correctly and not producing unreliable data?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
As the manufacturer and operator and system maintenance company, that would be very much in their interest.
Yeah.
And corporately, for the Post Office, it would be important to show that the system that was being used up and down the country had integrity and was working properly, wouldn't it?
I wasn't thinking like that at all.
Would you agree that that would be a corporate view which Post Office senior management would doubtless hold?
Yeah, I would agree, yeah.
Not least because I think you'd probably be aware that the proper functioning and integrity of the system was viewed as essential to the continuation of a number of sub-post offices around the country.
Yeah, I would agree, yeah.
But as the person responsible within a team for bringing people to justice, Is that your principal concern?
No, my principal concern was to ensure that we were asking Fujitsu to provide us with a witness statement and provide us with the evidence that the system couldn't be responsible for losses. Again, it's a poor choice of words, I know, but that was the view I had at the time.
Well, that's a different thing, whether you held a view at the time, which is different from one you hold now, in the light of what you now know. That's different from using words poorly. Okay. Were you using words poorly, or does this in fact reflect your state of mind at the time?
I don't believe it reflects my state of mind. I was just trying to do the right thing, but, you know, I've got it wrong, haven't I?
Well, the right thing, would you agree, Mr. Ward, was to say, although it might be in Fujitsu's interests to refute challenges and allegations to the system, or about the system, and it might be in Post Office's corporate favour or benefit to adopt the same approach, we're here as investigators or people who assist in an investigation, and we've got separate duties that we owe under the law and to the court properly and fairly to investigate.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that.
And what you've written is the opposite of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
You say in your witness statement, when we asked you to address this, that you suspect your concern at the word system failure would have been that it would have required a detailed explanation in a witness statement.
Yeah.
Why would that have been a bad thing, to have to explain what a system failure was?
Well, I just think, you know, and I've reflected on this an awful lot, I just think what I was really looking at was getting a full explanation of what Mr. Jenkins was saying in his statement, what a system failure was, because it didn't appear to me to be terribly clear. So, you know, I would not have said anything along the lines of, you know, you can't say this or whatever. I was just trying to get some clarity, and I appreciate how it looks now, and I'm sorry that it looks that way now, but, you know, it was not my intention to sort of, for that to happen in terms of removing the word system failure or whatever. I just wanted it to be clear and make sure it was explained properly.
You told us in your witness statement that you had little involvement with prosecution witnesses. Here you're making a suggestion as to what prosecution witnesses might say, aren't you?
I don't know why I got involved in this. I think it was because Nina Lowther had asked me, and I was just trying to be helpful. It wasn't the function of the casework manager to get involved in this way.
Why did you get involved?
Because I was asked, and I tried to be helpful.
Asked by who?
I think Nina Lowther in the emailers. I saw somewhere in the chain of the email that Nina had sent me a statement asking me to review it. Maybe she'd phoned me previously, I don't know.
You explained in the last sentence of that big paragraph there, the one that starts Brian, it may not be a statement that you, Penny or Nina can provide. You're sure that there must be somebody who can. Was that because you understood that such a statement needed to be authored by a person who could consider underlying data and properly analyse it?
No, it was because Penny and Nina only provided basic statements, and because this was relating to banking transactions and nil transactions, I just assumed, maybe wrongly, that it would have been outside their knowledge. And I was aware, obviously, that Mr. Jenkins had provided us a more detailed statement in the Castleton case. So I just assumed maybe that somebody else within the team might needed to have made that statement.
So you said that you were aware that Mr. Jenkins had provided a statement in the Castleton case. Were you aware that it wasn't used?
No, I wasn't aware, no.
Okay, that can come down, thank you. Can we look at your witness statement, please, at page 34? Page 34, please, paragraph 112. Paragraph 90 of the request, that's our request to you, asks me if I had or was aware of any concerns regarding the robustness of the Horizon system during the time I worked for the Post Office. I will say that at no time was I ever aware that the Horizon system had bugs, errors, or defects that could have affected balancing at a branch. As with any computer system, I was aware of minor issues, such as monitors freezing and terminals having to be rebooted. And then you address the system failures issue, which I'm going to come back to. So no time in all of your service, right up until May 2016, were you aware that the system had any bugs, errors, or defects that could affect balancing, correct?
Obviously, there was an article at some point, can't remember exactly what year. I can't remember what year it was it came out.
In which publication are you referring to?
Was it? I can't remember which one.
Are you thinking about Computer Weekly in May 2009?
No, I think it was later than that. I don't know. It was in the media. You know, it's obviously been in the media a lot. So no.
So other than that article,
yeah,
until you left in 2016, not aware bugs, errors, or defects that could have affected balancing at a branch?
No.
Everything else was about freezing monitors or reboots of terminals or something like that?
Well, just, yeah, I mean, there isn't a computer I've used that hasn't had an issue, rebooting or whatever. I just didn't consider system failures at all as being a serious issue, such as a bug and an error, a defect.
Thank you. Can we look at poll 00119895, please? Can you see this is a record of a meeting held at Coton House in Rugby on the 6th of December 2005. And you're listed amongst those being present. By this time, you were the investigation team casework manager, correct?
Correct.
You can see the others present. Mr. Baines, Ms. Cockett, Mr. Gallagher, Dave Holbert, Mr. Legg, Ms. Robson, and Alvin West.
Yep.
If we go forwards, further down the page, please, flip charts from the meeting. Keep going. Findings, sorry. There's no generally understood process for identifying emerging cases in which the integrity of accounting information produced by Horizon may become an issue. Do you remember in December 2005 attending a meeting in which the integrity of accounting information produced by Horizon was discussed?
No, I don't remember the meeting at all, but obviously I was there.
This is very early on in the piece, isn't it?
Yeah.
December 2005. Can you help us now as to why, if you were not aware of any bugs, errors or defects that might affect financial information, i.e. accounting, you were attending a meeting in December 2005 which addressed the process for identifying cases where the integrity of accounting information was in issue?
No, I can't explain that at all. There weren't many cases that I was aware of at all at this point. I was attending the meeting, I presume, on behalf of Tony Huttin.
We're just going up the page again to the cast list. Looking back at it now, was this the kind of thing you went to regularly?
No, not
a meeting at Coton House in Rugby?
No.
With a group of people relatively senior like that?
No, it wasn't, no.
Looking at that cast list and the location of the meeting about Horizon integrity and that first paragraph, doesn't it look like it's a meeting called because there were concerns about Horizon integrity?
Yeah, it does, yeah.
Go back to paragraph 1, please. So it looks like the result of the meeting was a conclusion that there wasn't a process for identifying cases in which integrity of Horizon accounting information might be an issue. Would you agree that if it was, and we'll see in a moment at the rest of the minutes of the meeting, it suggested that such a process be designed. Given that's the focus of the meeting and the outcome of it, does that tend to suggest to you that by this time, December 2005, the Post Office knew that there was an issue about the integrity of Horizon information?
There were challenges, but you know, from my own personal point of view, I didn't see that there were any, you know, serious issues with the actual integrity of the data.
Why would there need to be a process then? Surely you, if your state of mind was the right one, you'd say, well, hold on, why are we bothering with all this? Why have we got to go to rugby and discuss this? Why are we going to design a process? All we need to do is ask Fujitsu, and they'll tell us everything's all right.
Yeah. Well, I think it was just about coming up with a process.
But why does there need to be a process if there's not a problem?
Well, because I can only assume that they were expecting other challenges to come.
Okay, we'll continue. There are a number of channels by which such cases may enter the Post Office, and there's no process for making information about them available to all relevant functions. This increases the risk that different parts of the business may be dealing with the same issue and not coordinate responses. Transaction logs that can be obtained from Fujitsu via audit query requests provide the data that's required for investigation of claimed anomalies in particular cases. However, interpretation of this data is not simple. It requires a considerable level of understanding of branch transaction and, over the page, accounting processes and how these are implemented, as well as the skills to analyse such data using PC-based tools. The price for providing the data and for skilled resource to analyse and report on it is high. Capacity provided in the contract is fully used. We've looked at that already. To date, the number of cases in which the integrity of Horizon data has been an issue is small. However, recent correspondence in the sub-postmaster may well cause an increase. Also, there may be an effect from the introduction of transaction corrections replacing error notices. The Federation has had no involvement to date. This is expected to continue unless there was considerable momentum for a change from membership. Challenges may arise late in the process following suspension or issue of a late account further down the page. If all potential cases were to require Horizon data to be analysed early in the process, workload would be considerable and much would later prove unnecessary. There are 12 suspensions a week. Most of these cases are subsequently settled by agreement or are not contested. Where a case does go to court, it's essential that the Post Office is able to refute any suggestion that Horizon is unreliable in general, or that it could have caused specific losses to the sub-postmaster. Evidence needed for these points will be different. For general evidence will need to be in the form of a credible expert opinion confirms the system has been designed, built and operated in accordance with good practice, and its overall performance provides confidence on the specific errors claimed to have been caused in a particular case. Evidence will need to show that the system recorded transactions and calculated accounts accurately, and that the, over the page, transaction data is an accurate record. 13, such evidence will be given greater weight by a court if it's provided by an expert who's distanced from Post Office and Fujitsu. Evidence will need to be given by the person who carried out the analysis. This may mean in some circumstances an independent expert would need to repeat analysis for himself that Post Office and Fujitsu had already carried out. The Marine Drive case scheduled for 7th of February is the first of the current cases that may require expert testimony. Recommendations: a coordinated role should be established to maintain a list of all current civil cases and potential civil cases where accuracy of Horizon accounting information may be an issue, and ensure that all relevant business functions are made aware of these cases. 2, briefing is required for contract managers and service managers, all staff as well, setting out business policy lines to take and identify how potential emerging cases. 3, data is adequate, however, the capability to analyse such data is not available to Post Office. Additional costs will be required over the page. On balance, probably best to provide this resource in-house. Appointing an external expert is likely to give the best results in court. Discussions with Fujitsu should be initiated on the role, terms and reference and access to Fujitsu staff. We can ignore 5, and then some actions, none of which relate to you. Okay? Just scrolling back, please, to 3. Well, to 1, in fact. Coordination role. Was that done?
Not that I'm aware. I mean, as I say, I think I would have been there just covering for Tony Utting, so I would have just updated him with what happened at the meeting, and he would have presumably got a copy of this. And I don't remember being involved in anything after that.
If something was done to carry recommendation 1 into effect, that's something you would know about.
I would think so.
After December 2005 as having happened.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
It's something that would have engaged, well, it would either have occurred in your branch, in your team,
yeah.
Or it would have been something that required somebody within your branch, in your team, to provide data to.
Yeah.
Can we take it from the fact that you do not know about it, that it didn't happen?
Not that I'm aware of. I can't say it didn't happen, but I certainly don't have any knowledge of that.
If there was no problem with Horizon, if it was about frozen screens and keyboards not working, why was it necessary to establish a centralised coordination role?
Yeah, no idea.
Why wouldn't you have piped up at the meeting and say, hold on, this is all about monitors freezing and F1 not working on the keyboard?
Yeah, I don't know.
Is it because you in fact know that there was something more deep-seated about Horizon integrity and the data that it produced?
Absolutely not, no.
You agree that these minutes of this meeting tend to suggest that?
Well, I don't know if they suggest, I wouldn't interpret it that they suggest that the system is inaccurate because of bugs, errors and defects and it could affect the balancing. No, I think the meeting was about Horizon integrity.
What's the difference between Horizon and integrity?
The challenges that were that the business was receiving from sub-postmasters.
So you drawing a distinction there between there's going to be an increase in challenges because of this article in a magazine?
Yeah, I'd say I can't recall what I'd have been thinking back at this time, but that's possible.
To your knowledge, did recommendation 2 get carried into effect? Briefing, setting out lines to take?
I didn't have it. I don't recall receiving any feedback at all from this meeting, apart from obviously these minutes. So that would be the same for all the recommendations.
Well, over the page, please, at 4. Appointing an expert. The expert will need to testify. Such an expert may be needed in the Castleton case. Advice from Corbett on the desirability of using our external auditors. Remember the discussion earlier in the minute, reflecting the meeting, that the expert needed to be somebody outside of Post Office and Fujitsu. Did that recommendation get carried into effect?
Not that I'm aware of.
You know subsequently that Mr. Jenkins started providing witness statements and was treated as an expert or a person with expertise.
Yeah.
Did you ever raise an issue? Hold on. I went to a quite high-powered meeting in Rugby where it was agreed that we can't use somebody from Fujitsu or Post Office. They needed to be independent. And there was this discussion about using our external auditors and whether even that was independent enough. Why are we using somebody from Fujitsu?
You know, I mean, in terms of Mr. Jenkins, I didn't see him as an expert witness myself. I don't recall seeing him as an expert witness. I saw references to him as a distinguished engineer. And the statement that we'll come on to, it was just a case of asking somebody, Fujitsu, to provide a more detailed statement than the basic statement. It was a specific requirement, and I think Fujitsu identified Mr. Jenkins as somebody who could provide that statement.
But even if you didn't view him as an expert, why not pipe up and say, well, hold on, we've had this discussion. A meeting has been convened where various parts of the business have been pulled together and a strategy has been developed. Never mind all of the other things in the recommendations that haven't been done. One of them, we sat down and talked and agreed, we can't use somebody from Fujitsu or the Post Office. Why are we doing that?
Yeah, honestly, I've got no recollection of this meeting at all. I'm sorry.
Go back to page 1, please. You said that you were deputising, you think, for Mr. Utting.
I think so.
You would have got a note of this minute after the meeting.
Yeah.
Would Mr. Utting have got one directly?
Well, if I forwarded it on to him, yeah.
But why would you forward it on to him rather than deal with the issues that were raised in it yourself?
Well, I can only assume that I believe I was there covering for him.
So because you were covering for him?
Yeah.
Do you agree that this is a record of you being aware of challenges to the Horizon system's integrity and the financial information that it produced as early as December 2005?
I was aware of it being a meeting involving challenges to the Horizon system, yes, but I didn't consider them to be affecting the integrity of the balancing and the data on the system.
Why does it matter then? Why does Horizon integrity matter if it doesn't affect any of the financial data?
Well, because any issues on Horizon would matter.
What, irrelevant issues that have no causal effect?
I wouldn't say they were irrelevant.
So what were the relevant Horizon integrity issues if they weren't to do with accounting?
Well, it was just to do with the system operating correctly.
What does that mean, please, Mr. Ward? You know, don't you, that this was about the accounting information that the system produced?
No, I don't.
Go to paragraph 1, please. Emerging cases in which the integrity of accounting information.
For me, it was about the challenges that we were facing, not the actual system itself being incorrect.
Can we move on, please, to another aspect of what I might call an attitude of mind? You tell us in your witness statement, that can come down, that, and this is paragraph 22 of your witness statement, no need to display it, that in 2012 you were on the verge of leaving the security team.
That's correct, yeah.
And at that time you recall that investigations and financial investigations had slowed down considerably and may have ceased altogether, but you can't be completely sure.
Yeah.
And that meant the slowdown of investigations and slowdown of financial investigations meant that you wouldn't be able to use POCA powers for recovery of losses. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Why had investigations and financial investigations slowed down considerably and or ceased?
Well, Second Sight had been into, at the time, I think 2012, the Second Sight came in, and they were asked to review cases. I don't think we were ever formally told why cases were slowing down, but it was obvious to me that, yeah, there was a review going on. I knew there were internal meetings happening, but I wasn't involved in any of those.
What was the relationship between Second Sight reviewing some cases and the slowdown of investigations or cessation of investigations?
Well, I'm assuming they were connected.
What connection did you make between the two events?
Horizon cases.
I.e., they were investigating the integrity of Horizon.
We were never formally told that, as far as I was aware, but they were investigating Horizon cases.
And so why did the number of investigations slow down or cease?
Because we weren't doing, I'm assuming that at the time, we just stopped investigating things under PACE.
But why? Presumably the shortfalls were still continuing. The postmasters were still stealing the money.
Well, I don't know. That wasn't something I thought about. At the end of the day, we weren't receiving new cases.
But why? If you've got faith in the system and the data that it produces, the fact that these consultants have come in to investigate the system, why does that mean there is a cessation or a slowdown in investigations?
Well, they must have obviously identified some issues, I guess.
Were you upset at this?
No, not at all.
What did you think of the fact that investigations had stopped or had slowed right down?
Well, it just meant that as far as proceeds of crime cases, we wouldn't be dealing with them anymore, and that would be that.
Can we look, please, at poll 00121975? And if we can start, please, at page 5. And then scroll up to page 4. And just keep going, thank you. Thank you. We can see your email of the 1st of November to Andy Hayward, Rob King and Dave Pardo. At this time, what function did each of them perform?
Well, they were all senior managers. I'm not sure what Andy Hayward's role was. I think Dave Pardo might have been my line manager then. Well, no, it wouldn't have been. That's not right. I'm not sure what roles they were doing. They were all senior managers within the security team.
Within the security team?
Yeah, yeah.
So they were all within your team?
Yes, yeah.
And at this time you were an AFI?
Correct.
And you say, Andy, as discussed, compensation should be sought post-conviction for all non-POCA cases where post officers incurred a loss. At the moment, is that financial investigators trigger for involvement is more than £15,000.
Yeah.
Once a compensation order has been made by the court, then the defendant owes Post Office that money. and has to pay up within the timescales. However, unlike the Proceeds of Crime Act, compensation orders have no teeth, and enforcing these orders is time-consuming and in some cases ineffective, ending up with defendants paying minimal monthly instalments over a prolonged period of time. Then scroll down. In post office cases, one of the provisions covers the issue of compensation. The court can confiscate the defendant's assets to the value of the benefit figure and also compensate the victim. So, for example, if a sub-postmaster is convicted of theft of £50,000 and has sufficient assets, the court could make an order for £50,000 and make a further compensation order for £50,000, which is awarded to the victim. In effect, a double whammy. In reality, in all the cases I dealt with, Post Office will only seek compensation out of the confiscation order, but this is a matter decided by the judge. It's crucial at these confiscation hearings to ensure that the Post Office are awarded compensation from the confiscation order. And then there's a provision that we needn't look at. What was the context in which you were writing here?
What was the context?
Yes.
I was explaining that proceeds of crime cases, we would seek compensation orders out of the confiscation order rather than, you know, a judge could impose a compensation order and a confiscation order, which we never went for at all. We just went for our loss.
Why? So that's what you were saying. We can see that. Why were you saying it?
Because I was presumably asked for some clarity.
If we scroll up, please. And keep going. We can see that Mr. Hayward sends your email on to John L. Singh.
Yeah.
And then if we carry on, we can see that Mr. Singh duly sends it on to Sally Rolfe and Mary Lawrence. Do you know who they are?
No, I don't know.
I think we can certainly see who one of them is further up the page. She's an associate in DAC Beechcroft. Just reading back to what Mr. Singh said. Thank you for your kind help in assisting with the JFSA. Do you remember who the JFSA were?
Yes, the Justice for Sub-Postmasters Alliance.
And Post Office criminal enforcement policy documents as requested. I enclose the Post Office approach to compensation from Graham Ward.
Yes.
So it looks like, if you look at the title, JFSA and Post Office criminal enforcement policy, that the request was made in the context of asking, somebody asking about what Post Office's enforcement policy was. Do you agree?
Well, my understanding that they were just asking for clarity on how we approached confiscation and compensation orders.
Okay. If we carry on up the page, please. Thank you to Mr. Singh. Second line, this is helpful background. I'm not clear whether this is an instruction provided to counsel in each and every case, whether this is strict policy at Post Office or if this is just Graham's view.
I don't recall it being a policy, and it wasn't just my view, it's what we did in the FIU.
So it's practice.
Practice, yeah.
And then further up the page, please. John L. Singh comes back to you and said, can you provide him with views on Mary's email? Further up the page, please. You forward that chain to Dave Posnett. Yes?
Yes.
And you say Elv, is that Mr. Posnett? Why was he called Elv?
It goes back to when we first worked on the counter together, back in whenever it was, 1980s. He just had an Elvis haircut.
Right. Elv, I'm lost for words. Whilst in the pub earlier, John L. rang me about this very subject. And we spoke for about 15 minutes. Presumably he either didn't understand what I was on about or didn't get the answer he wanted to hear. Personally, I think these issues are for the senior leadership team. What are your views? my answer would be as follows. As things stand, we're a public body with a responsibility for public money. We currently have a prosecution policy recognised by the Home Office. We're, as a non-police prosecuting authority, with PACE-trained investigators and our own legal team. Following a successful conviction, we robustly seek to recover money stolen via the proceeds of Crime Act confiscation proceedings. I can only reiterate what I've said below. As far as I'm concerned, it's Post Office's policy to recover money in all cases where we've suffered a loss, which will include seeking compensation orders where there are no proceeds of Crime Act proceedings, and seeking confiscation orders where POCA has been instigated. I do not believe we will easily be able to provide stats to support which cases we've been awarded compensation orders for, as the casework spreadsheet doesn't have a column to record that. A trawl of recently closed files where we have prosecuted may provide some details. However, Dave and I have been recording details of cases where we've been awarded confiscation orders. As you'll be aware, the late account team will be also involved in recovery using civil action to pursue repayment of losses. I could waffle on, but I think we're flogging a dead horse. I get the impression there's a strong desire from the powers that be to water down our approach to prosecution and recovery. A sad, short-sighted and disastrous move. If I'm right, good night. Now, you're here writing, I think, at 6 minutes to 10 at night, if we look up at the top of the page. Having been in the pub.
Well, no, I don't know if I was. Well, I wouldn't have been in the pub writing that email.
No, but you had been in the pub.
Yeah.
Was this an important topic to Mr. Singh, then, to engage you after hours whilst you were drinking?
Well, I don't know what time he rang me.
You may have been in the pub in the afternoon.
Well, it may have been. I've got no recollection at all. It may have been just after work, 4 o'clock, whatever.
Was it an important topic that you would interrupt some time in the pub to spend 15 minutes talking about it to Jarnail Singh?
Yeah. If Jarnail rang me up and asked me a question, I would try and answer it.
And what was your concern? Why were you lost for words?
I think it was, you know, at the time, my feeling was, because we were still being told by the business that the Horizon system was robust and we could rely on it. My view at the time was that it looked as though we were going to stop prosecutions, even though the system was robust and reliable, which I must.
And you were fed up about that?
At the time, I just thought if the system's robust and reliable, why do we need to worry about stopping it?
You were angry, weren't you?
I wasn't. No, not really. I'm not an angry type of person. I mean, at the end of the day, I just get on with things.
You wanted to get on with prosecuting people?
No, I was
taking money back from them, didn't you?
No, I didn't. I was actually leaving the team. I was already aware that I was leaving the team at that time.
Well, you were leaving the team because things were winding down and you weren't going to be able to carry on prosecuting people and carry on taking money from them, were you?
No, that's not the case at all. I'd applied for jobs, well, quite a few years previous, so no.
At the very least, would you agree that the chain we've looked at here shows that you were aware that the impact of Horizon challenges and the work of the JFSA was impacting on the strategy and decision-making of the Post Office in late 2012?
Yes, I would agree with that.
You and your colleagues, including Mr. Posnert, would have been well aware of the significance of those challenges to the Post Office. Do you agree?
Yeah, of course, yeah.
By this time, late 2012, Jarnail Singh was the head of the criminal law team, wasn't he?
think he was the criminal law team. I don't think there were any other lawyers there.
And was he consulting you on the security team's strategy so far as enforcement was concerned?
Well, he asked me a question about confiscation and compensation orders, but he didn't consult me about anything else that I can recall.
You say that you won't be able easily to provide statistics to support those cases in which compensation orders had been made. Yes?
Yep.
Wasn't the Post Office monitoring which of its cases resulted in a compensation order?
Well, that would have been recorded on the JARD system that we use, the Joint Asset Recovery Database. So I would have had to have accessed that to obtain that information, but it would have been there.
You say, I do not believe we'll easily be able to provide stats.
Mm.
Why wouldn't you easily have been able to provide stats?
Because at that time we had to access JARD via a police station. So, you know, it would just have been a case of having to go to a police station and find an available computer that we could log on to access JARD to recover the information. So it could have been done, but...
Scrolling down to the bottom, please. Sorry, before we get to the bottom. Just scroll up, please. You say that Mr. Singh either didn't understand what you were on about, which of course is a possibility, or didn't get the answer he wanted to hear. Why did you think that he didn't get the answer that he wanted to hear?
Well, honestly, I've no idea now.
Was it because he was in favour of what you've described as watering down or winding down the investigation and prosecution function?
Not that I'm aware of, no. As I say, I really don't know.
If we go to the bottom of the page then, please. You say you think you're flogging a dead horse. You get the impression there's a strong desire from the powers that be to water down our approach to prosecution and recovery. Why did you think there was a strong desire from the powers that be to water down the approach to prosecution and recovery?
I think cases had dried up by that time. So I don't recall exactly. I say it's quite a while ago, but towards the end of my time in the security team, new cases had dried up completely, more or less. So it was just the old cases we were dealing with.
But dried up deliberately because there weren't steps being taken proactively to investigate them?
Yeah, I don't know.
Rather than sub-postmasters suddenly becoming honest again?
Quite possibly, yeah.
You say that this strong desire to water down is one of the powers that be. Who are the powers that be that you are referring to?
Well, I would probably just referring to our senior management within security.
Being who?
Well, at the time it would have been John Scott.
And why did you think that he wanted to water down the approach to prosecution and recovery?
I have no idea why I would think that. I'm sorry.
Why did you consider the change in approach to be sad, short-sighted and disastrous?
Well, I do believe that a prosecution policy is important. I do think it sends out a good message that the business is going to proactively deal with people that are committing offences. I think, you know, I've worked in security a long time. I think it's important. So I think moving away from that would have been a bad thing. That was just my personal opinion. I do say that this email was obviously late at night, and sometimes you say things in emails that maybe sound a bit worse than you actually mean.
Is that the case here?
Well, possibly, yeah.
Or is it that after you'd had a drink, your true feelings were being revealed?
No, not at all. I'm not a drinker at all, so I would have just been having probably one drink on the way home.
Why would it be disastrous to either slow down prosecutions or stop them whilst experts investigated the integrity of Horizon?
Well, I wasn't referring to the investigation that was going on with this.
Well, this was all in the context, wasn't it, Mr. Ward, of Second Sight?
Sorry, this is what?
All in the context of Second Sight.
I don't think I'd have been thinking of Second Sight at all at the time.
Why did you think the powers that be were watering down the approach to prosecution and recovery? Was it independent of what Second Sight were doing then?
No, I don't think it would have been, but yeah, I don't know what to say. It was just an email.
Well, it's not just an email, is it? It's you speaking to us back in 2012, revealing what you thought.
Well, as I said, I still believed, or we were told, I don't know, we were told that the system was robust and reliable.
Told
I believed that. Well, it was senior management, it was communications that came out. We were being told that we're, robustly defending the system, and rightly or wrongly, I believed that.
How were these communications distributed to you?
Well, normally, I think there were emails that came out.
And when you say senior management, do you mean senior management within the security team or from outside the security team?
No, it wouldn't have been the security team, no. This would have been the business.
So do you mean the very senior leadership within the team?
Well, yeah, that's where the messages would come from. Yeah, it was the communications team that would send out the messages. I can't remember, who a name of someone, but yes, there were messages that came out regularly, and I believed them.
And what did they say?
Well, just that reiterating that the business is challenging or defending the challenges to Horizon, and has full confidence in the Horizon system.
Before the break, please, can we look at poll 0032 9521? And page 2 to start with, please. And if we just scroll down a little bit. Thank you. Email from Gary Thomas to Dave Posnett. I've still got some electronic documents about a branch or branches. And then scroll up, please. Keep going. You email him. Why are you pleased? You've breached the Data Protection Act, as you should have deleted them years ago, smiley face. Further up the page, please. He says, in reply, because I want to prove there is no case for the justice of thieving sub-postmasters. Would you understand that to be a play on words on JFSA?
I would never have even thought of that, no, but I can see it, maybe, yeah.
And that we were the best investigators they ever had, and they were all crooks. Oh, and we never hit our post office profit targets anymore, as we stopped getting XX million pounds in recoveries from bloody good financial recoveries through my good friends Ward, Harbinson, Posnett and the like. End of rant. Hence why Scott had to get rid of us, because we is right and spoke out. Power to the people, Wolfie Smith. All right, my old gunner mate. Presumably that bit is addressed to you.
Yeah.
As an Arsenal fan, presumably, is that right? Yeah. Did Mr. Scott have to get rid of you because you were right and spoke out?
No, I wouldn't agree with anything that Gary said there at all.
Just scroll up, please. Presumably that's just stop there. You didn't reply that at the time. Gary, I don't agree with anything you said there, did you?
No, I didn't.
You said, I'll be all right if I get voluntary redundancy.
Yeah.
Just scroll back down to the text of the email. Why would he say that John Scott had to get rid of you if that's not true?
Well, I think, and I don't know what Gary was thinking there. It was a rant email that was most unlike him. I mentioned earlier in my evidence that there had been a policy decision by Mr. Scott to introduce a hub way of working. So that affected Gary Thomas because he was based in, I think he was somewhere on the south coast, and travelling into London was just totally impractical for him. So he had to find a different job. I don't think, when he says get rid of us, I don't know that that was applying to anybody else. I really don't know. I've no idea what Gary would have been thinking.
Did you laugh out loud when you got this, as he suggests at the end?
No, of course not.
Well, your email of reply within 2 minutes, his email is at 12 minutes past 5 and yours is at 14 minutes past 5. Hardly shows you to have objected to it, does it?
Well, no, I didn't.
These were your sentiments as well as his, weren't they?
Absolutely not.
And you realised at the time that the Justice for Sub-Postmasters Alliance, the JFSA, who had been campaigning for years, were being mocked by his capitalisation of case for the justice of thieving sub-postmasters. It's obvious, isn't it?
Well, I don't remember the email. I wouldn't have seen that at all, no. And it certainly wasn't my view.
What was Mr. Thomas referring to when he said, hence Scott had to get rid of us when we spoke out? Is that just a figment of his imagination?
Well, I don't know what he's referring to. I haven't written that, so I really don't know what he was thinking.
Was there a view amongst you and him, and perhaps Mr. Harbinson and Mr. Posnert, that you were the best investigators that the Post Office had ever had, and that sub-postmasters were, quote, all crooks?
No.
Well, is that a figment of his imagination too?
Well, I don't know what was going on in Gary's head, but it certainly wasn't my view, and I'm sure it wasn't the view of Mr. Posnett and Mr. Harbinson.
He says, sarcastically or ironically, oh, and we never hit our post office profit targets. What were post office profit targets?
I've no idea.
Is that a reference to needing to recover a percentage of all shortfalls? Remember a 65% figure?
There wasn't a 65% figure when I was there, as far as I can recall. I think, are you referring to the documents I was sent last Friday? Yeah, so that was 2013, I think, 2013 and 14.
Was there any profit target or recovery target when you were a financial investigator?
I don't think there was. I'm not sure. There may well have been, but it would have never affected the way I did the job at all.
So what's he referring to there when he says we never hit our post office profit targets anymore?
I've no idea.
So this to you from beginning to end is all nonsense?
It
makes no sense at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's just a rant.
Who spoke out?
Who spoke out?
Yeah.
Again, I've got no idea.
Thank you, sir. That might be an appropriate moment. I wonder whether we could take a 15-minute break, please.
Yes, of course. So when do we return?
15:15, please, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you. Afternoon, sir. Can you see and hear us?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
So just by way of explanation of timings, I'm proposing to ask questions until 4 p.m. Because I know that each of the three sub-postmaster groups have questions that will take about 30 minutes.
Fine.
And therefore I'm allowing sufficient time for that. I'm going to ask questions, I think, only about Mr. Ward's involvement in the case of Noel Huey Thomas. Mr. Ward, in your statement, in paragraphs, I think it's 69 onwards, which is on page 23, you set out your involvement in the prosecution of Noel Thomas. Yep. And you tell us, in summary, that you were the casework manager in relation to Mr. Thomas's case. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
And you therefore acted as the single point of contact between Fujitsu and the Post Office in relation to litigation support in that case, and in particular in relation to the ARQ process.
That's correct.
Now, I think contemporaneous emails that we're going to look at and draft witness statements attached to them show us that you and Diane Matthews were involved in reviewing some witness statements. Is that right?
That's correct.
Was that a normal function for you as the casework manager to perform?
No, it wasn't, no.
They also show that you were involved in the drafting of Mr. Jenkins' witness statement, i.e. making drafting changes and suggestions to him.
Yes, that's correct. I offered some comments, yeah.
Was that a usual function for you to perform?
No, it wasn't.
If it was not usual for you to review witness statements, less still to suggest the contents of them, why did you do so on this occasion?
I think, as I said earlier, Nina Lowther had asked me to review. Well, there was an email saying Graham for review. I'm assuming that she may have called me, you know, just to ask, would you mind, because this is a new statement. It related to nil transactions, and it was banking transactions. So maybe they just felt they needed a little bit of support. I don't know why. I said yes. I'd normally just pass it straight on to the investigator to deal with, but I guess I was just trying to be helpful.
If the function of casework casework management, so far as compliance was concerned, was checking the layout and physical attributes of a file, stickers, font size, things like that, why were you getting involved in the substance here?
Just because I was asked if I would help, and I tried to be helpful. But you know, on reflection, obviously, I shouldn't have got involved at all.
Can we look, please? And I'm afraid there's a long trawl of documents we're going to have to go through to address the issues fairly. To start with, at FUJ 0015 5181. And can we start, please, at page 17? And if we just look at the top of, just scroll up the bottom of 16. And a bit further on, thank you. We can see Diane Matthews emailing you on the 14th of October 2005 about Mr. Thomas's branch.
Yep.
And what function did Miss Matthews perform at this time, October 2005?
She was an investigator.
Was she local to you, or was she out in Mr. Thomas's area?
No, she was up north.
Graham, just to clarify, sub-postmasters not made any calls to HSH or MBSC prior to yesterday's audit is now voicing concerns over the nil transactions on card account online banking transactions. I believe there are at least 2 scenarios where a nil value will be recorded, and she sets them out, both to do with what the customer does. Yeah?
Yes.
And then if we scroll on, please. Please, can you check any other possibilities of nil values on these types of transactions with Fujitsu? As the sub-postmaster is blaming the Horizon system on his losses, could we check that there are no problems with the Horizon kit at the branch? The branch will remain closed until we're happy that the Horizon system is fully operational. Before you received this email, did you know what nil transactions were?
No.
And did you therefore not know what the possible causes of nil transactions were?
Yeah, that's correct. I wouldn't have known.
Other than speaking, as we know, via email to Fujitsu, did you speak with or check with anyone within the post office as to what nil transactions were?
Not that I can recall, no.
Or what their causes were?
No, not that I can recall, no.
Or whether anyone within post office had seen anything similar or a previous problem had arisen?
No.
So why did you go to Fujitsu?
Well, I would have assumed that Diane would have done that in her capacity as an investigator, may have spoken to somebody else, and as she was asking for Horizon data, then it just seemed the right thing to do to ask Fujitsu. So
she was asking you firstly to look for other possibilities, i.e. other than the 2 which she has mentioned, for the causes of nil transactions, or nil values on transactions, yes?
Yeah.
And she was asking you, secondly, to check that there were no problems with the Horizon kit at Mr. Thomas's branch, correct?
Yes.
And so she was asking in that second regard about hardware at Mr. Thomas's branch, wasn't she?
That's correct.
Can we go to page 16, please? And your email at 4:15. You emailed the Fujitsu general address, which you described earlier, copying Miss Matthews in and copying Charles Layton in. Who was Charles Layton?
He worked in security at the time, and I think he had quite a good knowledge of Horizon. That may be why I copied him in.
What did he do in security?
Oh, I can't remember his job title.
Was he in your office?
No, I don't think he was, no.
In any event, you forward Miss Matthews' email
Yeah.
To Fujitsu, copying these people in.
Yeah.
And you say that it says it all. Is there a check that can be made to ensure that there are or were no serious errors in the system at this post office? And by that, did you intend Fujitsu to check the position at the branch itself?
Yes.
We already have details of calls made to the help desk spreadsheet which do not highlight anything obvious. Are there any general error type reports that will tell when there is a problem with the system, which the post office may not necessarily be aware of, particularly in relation to the highlighted paragraph? Have there been similar problems elsewhere? I've heard of Tivoli event logs. Could these be relevant? This case is in its early stages. If it were to proceed to a prosecution, we'd likely need a statement which outlines how you can confirm that there were no operating errors within this office's system. Haven't submitted an ARQ, but I can. In the second line, you ask for a check for no serious errors on the system.
Yes, I do, yeah.
And why were you asking for checks to be made on serious errors?
The word serious obviously shouldn't have been there. It should have been errors.
you say that you've heard of Tivoli log events. Can you recall what you had heard about Tivoli log events?
No, I'm sorry, I've got no recollection of that at all.
You say in the last paragraph that you're likely to need a statement which outlines how you can confirm there were no operating errors within this office's system. At this point, at the time of writing, you didn't know one way or the other whether there were problems in the system, did you?
No, I didn't, no.
Why were you presuming that there were not?
Again, it's just a one-sided view that we seem to, or I seem to have had at that time.
Was that a view that lasted for quite a long time, Mr. Ward?
Well, I trusted, you know, the business's messages.
At this time in October 2005, there wouldn't have been messages coming down, would there, from on high?
No.
Cascading a belief in the integrity of Horizon?
I think at that time, there weren't any major issues.
But as somebody connected to the investigation process, you needed to have an open mind, didn't you?
Yeah.
Not a closed mind. Please give me a witness statement that shows that the sub-postmaster's wrong.
No, I mean, I agree, yeah.
Did you have a closed mind?
Well, I didn't think so at the time.
Did that closed mind operate right up until 2015? We was right, as Mr. Thomas wrote to you.
No, I always tried to keep an open mind with everything I did, but, you know, clearly in this case I didn't have an open mind now.
Page 15, please. And scroll down, please. Miss Thomas replies to you. Graham, nothing's ever straightforward. Here's some feedback. The original email makes reference to an audit. To answer your question definitively, I'd need to know what data they're auditing that defines a nil transaction. Is it zero transaction values in the R or A messages, or are they auditing data in some host database or log? This matters because, for example, the counter does not send up an amount value in the R message for withdraw to limit. That may be represented as a zero value in log or database field. The same might be true for change, PIN and balance inquiry. All banking transactions are approved online with the acquirer. These other reasons might also cause a nil transaction. Nil transactions could also be caused by errors in PIN pad, counter, agents or host code, depending on what constitutes a nil transaction. This can't be determined without access to the appropriate system logs. In other words, we need to check the system log. How would you like to proceed? So she's setting out a range of possibilities for the cause of a nil transaction being recorded, but which can only be checked via the appropriate system logs and might require external sources to be accessed. Correct?
Well, she's just said we need to check the system logs, so I wouldn't have known what logs that would be.
If we look at your reply at the top, you've confused me and you asked some questions. I think it's best if the system logs are examined in the first instance. Do you need an ARQ? Going back to 1st of April 2005, is it possible for you to run a report to show nil values for the transaction examples described so we can see how often it happens? Page 14, please. You email on the 25th of October, Miss Matthews, Mr. Dawkins, and Penny Thomas, saying you've agreed the following course of action. Fujitsu will instigate a thorough analysis of the system at the office going back 1 month to the date of the audit. If we need to go back further, we will do. I do not see a need to remove hardware at this point to conduct any specialist examination of the processors. particularly given the postmaster didn't report any faults with the system to the help desk. I'd suggest that a call is logged with the help desk outlining the alleged fault and asking them to send over an engineer to the site to conduct a test of the equipment prior to the office being reopened. I'm sure they can also perform a few test transactions. Penny, please find attached the relevant ARQ, and that's an ARQ that ends with 401. Yes? Can you see that?
Yes.
Can we look, please, at page 1, please? This is ARQ 401. We can see that from the right-hand side. Can you see the reference there?
Yes.
Date range, 14th of September to the 13th of October, 30 days. Scroll down, please. Please conduct an analysis of all help desk calls for that period. Conduct a thorough examination of the system in general with a view to refuting the postmaster's allegation there's a fault with the nil transactions on card account online banking transactions. Please bear in mind we're investigating a substantial shortage in the accounts. Should this proceed to prosecution, we may be asking for a supporting witness statement. You're asking there for a thorough examination of the system. What did you think would be done as a result of that request?
Well, I would have assumed that would. Well, I think I've tried to explain it as clearly as I can. I haven't, Penny would have been aware of the email chain, so I'm just trying to make sure that they do all that they need to do to explain or detail what the nil transactions were for that period, if there were any, and what impact it would have on the actual balance.
So you're asking for ARQ data for those 30 days, yes? Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, it's worded differently to normal ARQs. I'm not quite sure. I don't recall this very well at all, but I think what I'm asking for there is an analysis of just the help desk calls rather than the ARQ data, because this is banking transactions. So ARQ data is, event and transaction logs. Okay,
so the 30-day period is a reference to the sentence that appears underneath. Conduct an analysis of all help desk calls.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
And is that all help desk calls for this branch?
Just for the branch, yeah.
I thought it had been established that he hadn't made any help desk calls.
Yeah, correct.
So if you knew that he wasn't making help desk calls, why were you asking for 30 days of help desk calls to be analysed?
Yeah, that's obviously an oversight on my part.
But this ARQ request doesn't ask for ARQ data?
No.
And the form here is this section that we're looking at in the middle of the page, a free text box.
Yes,
it's not a drop down, it's not populated with preset requests. You can say what you want in here.
Exactly, yeah.
Again, you say that you're asking for an examination with a view to refuting his allegation that there's a fault with the system. Why wouldn't you say with a view to investigating the postmaster's allegation?
I've already acknowledged, I think, that yeah, that's how it should have been worded, and I apologise for that.
And if I was to look
One-sided.
for... I'm so sorry, I spoke over you.
It's a one-sided view, I agree, and it's, yeah, I should have been wording it better.
If I was to look over ARQ requests or other communications outside the 20-odd case studies we're looking at in this inquiry, of which Mr. Thomas's case is one, am I likely to see that one-sided view replicated?
I would think so, yes.
Can we look, please, at FUJ 0015-2587? And look at page 8, please. And if we just look at the top, the bottom of the next page, page 7. And just a bit more, please. And a bit more. We're now in March 2006, and you're emailing the Fujitsu email account in relation to a range of cases. ARQ's statement request and assistance. And you speak about 2 attached files. Both of the above requests relate to cases where the post office are being challenged about the accuracy. You deal with Marine Drive and Torquay Road next. Further down, if we can scroll on, please. And then at the bottom of the page, you say, on a separate matter, I also require a witness statement in relation to the following ARQs. And there's one of the ones that we've seen already, 401.
Yes.
And there's also 459 and 460, all of which relate to Mr. Thomas's branch. We need the usual, leave out paragraphs H, B, and J, but we do need K, covering an analysis over the period 1st of November 04 to the 30th of November 05. Penny, you may recall this one, relates to nil transactions. My previous emails refer. Can you add an extra paragraph in your statement explaining how online banking transactions are processed and the data downloaded and how nil transactions can occur? So 5 or 6 months has passed now, and you're now asking for a witness statement to address the things that had been mentioned in the 3 emails that you refer to there. Is that right?
Sounds like it,
yeah. Can we go to FUJ 0015-2582? And look at page 3, please. This is 11 days later, you emailing Penny Thomas about Mr. Thomas's branch. These are the nil transactions you sent us and will need to be produced and explained within your Brian's statement. And you attach the 401 analysis and then the ARQ data under the numbers 459 and 460, by which time you have now got these. Yes?
Yes.
And if we go to page 2, please. We can see that if we scroll down a little bit, in an email that you wouldn't have known about at the time, Brian Pinder of Fujitsu is forwarding that email to Gareth Jenkins. Please see extract from a recent email below in italics from Graham Ward, and then he extracts your email of the 10th of March that we looked at a moment ago regarding providing a statement about nil transactions and online banking. If you're able to put something together for us, I'd be grateful. If you send it back, I'll arrange for Nina or Penny to write into a statement for your signature. And then he cuts in what you had said in your 10th of March email. Can you see that?
Yeah.
And the important part is in bold and in italics. can you add an extra paragraph in your statement explaining how online banking transactions are processed and the data downloaded and how nil transactions can occur? And so this is Mr. Pinder asking Mr. Jenkins to put something together for him, or for us, for Fujitsu, in order to address that issue. And if we go up to page 1, please. Scroll down, please. We can see Mr. Jenkins' reply. I've had a look at the ARQs, and I think there's sufficient info there to explain in most cases why there are 0 transactions. I suggest the following as a brief explanation. 3 main reasons why 0 transaction may be generated as part of the banking system: no financial effect, declined by bank, or there has been some sort of system failure. Each transaction has associated with it a response code field. In summary, and then if we look, please, at response code, second bullet point, value between 2 and 10 means declined by bank. Response code with a value greater than 10 implies some sort of system failure. Does that provide you with enough detail? Can we look, please, at FUJ 0012-2203? We can see a little later on the 23rd witness statement from Mr. Jenkins. This is his initial draft, being sent to Nina Lowther and Brian Pinder. And essentially, I'm not going to spend time looking now, the explanation that he provided in the email is substantially summarised or replicated in that draft. Can we go, please, to FUJ 0015-2587? And look at page 4 first, please. And scroll down, please. And a little further. A little further. Nina Lowther on the 22nd of March, please see the draft witness statement for the above transactions re nil values. Does this meet your requirements? So that's sent to you 22nd of March at 1 minute past 1. And then if we scroll up, please. And stop there. You read the witness statement over the next hour and a bit, and you say layout's unfinished. As per my earlier email, the 3 spreadsheets need to be produced as individual exhibits. And then second line, I'm concerned at the word system failure, which is also in an earlier line. Quote, there has been some sort of system failure. What does this mean exactly? And is there any indication of a system failure at this office during the period in question? And then scroll up, please. And again, just stop there. 24th of March, second draft statement provided. Can we see what happened in between those events by looking at FUJ 0012-2203? And look at page 2, please. And scroll down, please. And again. And again. We see Nina Lowther forwarding the email we've just read on to Mr. Jenkins. Please see reply from Graham. Ignore the bit about exhibits. Please can you look at his second paragraph and advise with your comments. That's the bit about system failures.
Yeah.
If we scroll up, please. And keep going. Mr. Jenkins replies, I'm not quite sure what his problem, that's your problem, is with what I've said. Basically, any value of response code that's greater than 10 does imply some end-to-end system failure. The actual value makes it clearer exactly what the failure is and where it's been detected. And he gives some examples. How do you want to play this? Do you want to add in specific text to the witness statement to cover these two codes, or persuade Post Office that the generic statement is okay, perhaps with some clearer words? Further up the page, please. She, that's Nina Lowther, says she's updated your witness statement. She's not Mr. Jenkins' witness statement. She's not included the response below because she's not sure how to fit it in. Could you help? Also, I believe Graham Ward is thinking that system failures are drastic events. Is that true?
Well, I just wanted them explained. I didn't know whether they were drastic or not. It's just from and it's going back such a long time. It's so hard to sort of recall what I was thinking. But I'm guessing that the first statement wasn't clear to me at that time. So I just wanted a bit more context around what he meant by system failures.
And then scroll up, please. Mr. Jenkins says that he's annotated it with revisions and doesn't feel able to include the last two paragraphs, which may make the statement useless. Can we now look, please, at the drafts that he had previously provided? Can we start, please, with FUJ 0012-2204? Can we scroll down, please? He says there are three main reasons why a zero-value transaction may be generated. System failure is the third of them. Such failures are normal occurrences. He then sets out, in summary terms, in substance, the same thing as he said in that email we looked about response codes. Can you see that?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Would you agree that this is important information, that a zero-value transaction may be shown or may be generated, including by reason of a system failure?
Yes, it is important, yeah.
And that he is saying that such failures are normal occurrences?
Yeah.
And he's saying that there's a system code that may identify them?
Yeah, I don't know that I was tying in the paragraphs beneath that with system failures. Maybe that's just my ignorance of not knowing exactly what nil transactions were.
But doesn't this explain it? His numbered paragraph 3, some sort of system failure, is linked to the third bullet point at the bottom of this page. Response code with a value greater than 10 implies some sort of system failure.
Yeah, I can
They're
see.
speaking about the same thing, aren't they?
Yeah, I can see that now, yeah.
And then if we go forward to page 3, please. And those last two paragraphs, can you see the one beginning, no reason to believe that, and any records to which I refer?
Yeah.
You remember he said he didn't feel that he was able to include those?
Yes, I do, yeah.
And that they may make the statement useless?
Yes.
What did you think the purpose of the inclusion of those two paragraphs was?
Well, these were two general paragraphs that the criminal law team had asked to be included on statements that produced computer evidence. So it was, to my mind, important to have them in there to say that the system's operating properly and didn't affect the information held on it.
What did you take from the fact that he thought that these bits, which I think on the original were highlighted in yellow, weren't true? Or he wasn't sure they were true?
Well, that would have been a concern, obviously.
Sorry?
That would have been a huge concern. If he,
Why would it have been a huge concern?
If he can't say that the system's operating properly, then, yeah, there's a problem, isn't there? Is this, this wasn't the final statement, was it?
No.
All right.
What we'll see happens is that he requests for them to be removed. They are removed, and then in the end draft, they come back in.
What, the statement that was produced in evidence?
Yes.
I don't know anything about that.
He says, can this be deleted? All I've done is interpret the data.
Yeah.
In the spreadsheets you've emailed to me, would you have read this at the time, i.e. the attachment to this email?
I would like to think I would, yeah.
Or this being the attachment to the email that you got?
Yeah, I would have thought so, yeah.
Do you understand these, or did you understand these two paragraphs to be statements speaking to the accuracy and reliability of Horizon generally, or about a system that had been used to extract ARQ data?
Horizon generally.
Hence your belief that these were significant omissions, or they would have been significant omissions.
Yeah.
Can we look, please, at FUJ 00122210? And if we scroll down, on the 24th, i.e. the next day, you say, oh, sorry, scroll up, please. This statement needs more work. You're emailing Nina Lowther, Brian Pinder, Keith Baines, Paul Dawkins, and Diane Matthews. This statement needs more work. I've attached a suggested draft with a number of comments. As mentioned previously, I think the system failure normal occurrence line is potentially very damaging. Firstly, why did you think the system failure normal occurrence line was potentially very damaging?
Well, just for the reason I've said previously, I think I was just looking for a little bit, it just wasn't clear to me exactly what he meant by it. And that may just be my ignorance of not knowing about banking transactions and nil transactions, but, you know, I'm just offering a comment. I'm not trying to lead him into saying anything in his statement or anything like that. I was trying to be helpful, but clearly I wasn't being. So I can see here it says it may be worth considering someone from our team taking a statement directly for him.
Why did you think that was a good idea?
Well, I just thought it was getting a bit confusing with his statement, and I just thought maybe it'd be best for the investigator dealing with the investigation to actually deal with it themselves.
Why would you be concerned if a person with expertise from Fujitsu is giving technical evidence, the effect of which was damaging? Wouldn't you be pleased that as an investigator or somebody associated with an investigation, the true position was being revealed?
Well, yeah, when you word it like that, yes, and I really wasn't trying to alter his statement or make him say anything. I was just wanting, clarity on what he meant by system failures.
That's not how this reads, is it?
No, it's not.
You've gone straight to the effect of what he says. i.e. it causes us, the post office, damage.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see how it looks now.
Again, is this one of those examples of the way that you were thinking at the time? The important thing is to maintain, even in our prosecutions, the line that Horizon has integrity and produces reliable data.
I wasn't trying to do that, no. I just obviously had a closed mind to the way I put things across. But I really wasn't trying to, you know, at the end of the day, the truth is more important. And
we don't see that kind of sentiment in any of your email exchanges, do we?
well, no, maybe not, but I know the person that I am.
Well, I think we can delete maybe from that sentence and replace it with definitely.
Okay.
Can we look, please, at poll 0004 7895? This is a copy of the marked up witness statements, marked up by you, forwarded by Miss Lowther to Mr. Jenkins. And if we scroll down, please. And if we keep reading. Sorry, if we just go back to the top, please. And then scroll down slowly, please. Remaining in the statement, in the second paragraph, second line, I was asked to produce information relating to nil transactions. Then if we go to the second page, please. And then the paragraph beginning, there are three. We see your comments. There are three, and then you've added, if these are the main three reasons, what are the rest? That's in the nature of a question, both in terms of the words used and the use of the question mark. So that's clarificatory, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes. Sorry.
So you're genuinely trying to find something out by the look of it there. Why a zero value transaction may be generated as part of the banking system. And then we see Mr. Jenkins' own words. Transaction has no financial effect. Transaction has been declined by the bank. And then we see system failure reason missing, don't we? You've deleted it, haven't you?
No, I would not have deleted anything at all.
Why doesn't it appear here?
I don't know.
You've typed over it. This is a really poor choice of words, which seems to accept that failures in the system are normal and therefore may well support the postmaster's claim that the system is to blame for losses,
No.
for exclamation marks.
No, I would not have typed over anything or deleted anything at all. I just know the person that I am, and I wouldn't have done that.
Well, you were concerned, we've seen at the emails that preceded this, with what Mr. Jenkins was proposing to say about system failures, weren't you?
Yeah, I was concerned, yeah. I just wanted clarity on it, as I said, but I would not have typed over it or deleted it.
This is the attachment to an email that you sent to Nina Lowther, who in turn sent it on to Mr. Jenkins.
Right.
Do you know where these words have come from then?
Well, I'm sure I must have typed the words, yeah, but I wouldn't have typed over system failure.
Okay, if we move on, next page, please. We see that the paragraphs that were previously in yellow, which Mr. Jenkins said that he didn't feel that he could say, have been deleted. Did you delete those then?
No. I can't explain it at all. I would not have written over or deleted anything from anybody's statement. Absolutely not.
Can we move to FUJ 0012-2217?
Well, before we do, since I think you've just accepted that you attached this witness statement to an email you sent, can you explain where this witness statement came from so as to enable you to attach it to an email?
No, I'm sorry, sir. I just cannot remember, this at all.
Well, people's memory, of course, is for them to tell me about, but this is a pretty memorable event, is it not? This is you really becoming involved in an important statement in relation to the prosecution of someone in a way that you'd never done before, as I've understood it. So can you try and rack your memory, please, as to how this statement came to be attached to an email you sent?
Honestly, I just can't explain it at all, no. I really can't.
All right.
Can we move, lastly, conscious of the time, to FUJ 0012-2217? Now Mr. Jenkins is liaising with you directly. Graham, I've added some further annotations to your annotations. Does this move us forwards? We're now on the 28th of March. If we just scroll down. So the email that I was talking about that attached the witness statement we were just looking at is the one at the bottom of the page here, 24th of March 2006, 11:37. This statement needs more work. I've attached a suggested draft. That's the one we're talking about.
Yes.
Then Nina Lowther sent it to Gareth Jenkins, and then further up. He replies, I've added some further annotations to your annotations. Does this move us forwards? Can we look at his attachment, please? FUJ 0012-2218. This is Mr. Jenkins' further draft. Scroll down, please. And scroll down. Scroll down. And scroll down. And scroll down. And scroll down. Stop. That big paragraph at the foot of the page, 3 lines in, there are 3 reasons why a zero value transaction may be generated as part of the banking system. 1 and 2 as normal. Then what I've suggested are your words. This is a really poor choice of words, which seems to accept that failures in the system are normal, etc. And Mr. Jenkins replies, please can you suggest something better then? What we have here are genuine failures of the end-to-end system, which are not part of normal operation, but are anticipated. And the system is designed to cope with them. Some such failures could be engineered as part of a malicious attack. In all cases, the system is designed to identify such failures and handle them in such a way customer, Postmaster, Post Office Limited, and the FIs, I think that means investigators, are all clear as to the status of the transaction and any necessary financial reconciliation takes place. I guess one option is to delete over the page the paragraph, since it's purely an introduction to the more following detailed description, and then that remains. And then if we go to the last page, if we keep scrolling. and then the paragraphs remain deleted about the normal operation of the computer system.
Yeah.
FUJ 00152587. Later in the day, on the 28th, you say to Mr. Pinder, copying Ms. Lowther and Mr. Jenkins in, I don't understand why this statement is taking so long. I appreciate it's slightly unusual. I don't understand the confusion. I thought I'd made our requirements clear. Was it for you, as an investigator or a manager of investigators, to require what was included in a witness statement?
No, it wasn't. Not in my role as casework manager, no.
Unfortunately, Gareth's annotations do not take us further forward. Sure, this isn't Gareth's fault. We can skip the next paragraph and then go to the next paragraph, as already stated. We urgently need a statement producing these spreadsheets. Under what circumstances nil transactions occur, and in particular how the nil transactions at Garwin occurred. The same statement needs to include a paragraph which states that there is no evidence of a system error at Garwin, assuming this is the case, in relation to nil transactions. We do not need to mention system failures being normal occurrences if there's no evidence of such a problem at this office. Why were you so concerned about this?
It's hard for me to sort of take myself back to 2006. I really don't know.
Is it because you didn't want anyone knowing that there might be a system fault with Horizon?
No.
You wanted that edited out of evidence being presented to a court?
No, I didn't want anything edited out at all. I just wanted to make sure that the statement was clear, and I've just gone about it the wrong way.
Would you accept the effect of your interventions individually and taken together have as their object the editing of a witness statement to remove mention of system failures in Horizon?
No, because I haven't seen the final statement.
We're going to come to the final statement in a moment, but so far, do you accept what I have suggested? The effect of what you are asking for is to edit out of a statement to be presented to court any mention of a system failure in Horizon?
I don't accept that. I didn't intend that to be the case, no. No. I can see that's how it looks, but that wouldn't have been my intention at all.
It seems, that can come down, thank you, that Mr. Pinder then spoke with Miss Matthews and arranged for her to speak with Mr. Jenkins personally, which seems to have occurred on the 6th of April 2006, in order to, quote, record the statement. Did you have any involvement in that?
No, I don't. No.
Do you know what happened on that occasion?
No, I've got no idea.
Do you know why it was thought necessary to dispatch somebody to Mr. Jenkins in order to record, quote, record a statement from him, given what we've seen has transpired already?
No, I don't think... No, I don't. And I think I was the one that suggested that somebody takes a statement, just because it was getting confusing, clearly. So, yeah, I made the suggestion because I wanted to get the statement right.
Can we look at FUJ 00122237? This is the final witness statement dated the 6th of April 2006. If we scroll down, please. And keep scrolling. And keep scrolling. and keep scrolling, and keep scrolling, and keep scrolling, and keep scrolling, and stop. We can see some mention of response codes there. Yes?
Yes.
Don't see any mention of response codes 10 and above being equated to system faults, do we?
No.
Do you know why that's disappeared?
I've got no idea, no.
And keep scrolling. Sorry, scroll back up. We then see no reason to believe statement is inaccurate because of improper computer use. And then over the page, please. The second bit of the the standard words not appearing.
Yeah.
Do you know how the final statement came to not include any mention of system failures?
No, I don't.
Do you know how the final statement came not to mention any reference to the fault codes, response codes that equated to system failures?
No, I don't know.
Do you know how it came to pass that half of the standard wording, as you've called it, came to be included in the final version when Mr. Jenkins had earlier said that he couldn't include either of those paragraphs because he wasn't sure they were true?
No, I don't have any idea at all.
Mr. Ward, thank you very much. I'm sorry, sir, I've gone 10 minutes over time.
Well, we'll afford to the representatives of the sub-postmasters an extra 10 minutes, so I'll sit until somewhere between 22 and 4:45, if necessary, but they'll have to sort out between them how they share out that time.
Thank you. I think Ms. Page first, then I think the Hudgels group, and then they're speaking amongst themselves, sir, which you can't see.
Oh, yeah, well, of course, please do.
But they're eating into their time.
Other sub-postmasters. In your witness statement at paragraph 62, you said, "I don't personally recall being concerned that Mr. Castleton's claim posed a challenge to the integrity of the Horizon system, as I don't recall that it was considered a significant issue at that time." Is that really true, Mr. Ward?
Yes, that's what I believed at the time, absolutely.
Do you remember you were being asked questions about that meeting in December 2005 that you said was unusual?
Yeah.
Do you really not recall that meeting, Mr. Ward?
No, honestly, I don't recall it. It was 2005.
That meeting was all about challenges to the Horizon system.
But it does say within the notes that there weren't many challenges.
One of them was Mr. Castleton. It must have been a case that was up for discussion at that meeting, Mr. Ward. Yeah,
well, honestly, I don't have any recollection of that meeting. I'm sorry.
Can I have, please, FUJ 0015 2290 on the screen, please? And if we go down to page 3, please. If we just scroll a little bit up, we can see that this is an email from you to Brian Pinder, 28th of July. Do you see that?
Yes.
Copied to Peter Sewell, and the subject is Castleton transaction logs. Brian, you say, Stephen Dilley, representing the Post Office, is asking if it is possible that someone undertakes an analysis of the figures recorded on the transaction logs supplied by Fujitsu against the figures on the completed cash account for CAP 42. So that's just cash account period, yeah? And then he gives the dates in 04. It appears that the solicitors for Castleton are saying that they've compared the transaction logs with the cash accounts for week 42 themselves, just for an initial analysis, and that they don't match. They conclude that Horizon is therefore only recording half the transactions. I've attached below the letter dated 25th of July from the solicitors, and then if we go down a little, you say this: given this is a, quote, test case, and that the integrity of the Horizon system is being challenged, my own opinion is that this exercise should be completed by an expert from Fujitsu. You go on to say that that would be time-consuming and that it will need to be methodically and carefully done. And you say that it's important that we complete the analysis and respond formally to the points raised as soon as possible. And you go on to say, my first question is this an exercise that Fujitsu could undertake, possibly by Gareth? So that suggests Mr. Jenkins, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, yeah.
Who would presumably have a thorough understanding of the figures recorded on both the transaction logs and the figures on an office cash account. If the answer is yes, how soon can it be performed? And then you ask, what are the costs involved? Thank you, that can come down. It's quite clear from that, isn't it, Mr. Ward, that you knew full well that this was a case that challenged the integrity of Horizon?
Well, that was a civil case, yeah. It was one of the first that I'd been aware of, and I was just acting as the casework manager in charge of the ARQ process.
Mr. Ward, you said in your witness statement that you didn't think that the Castleton claim posed a challenge to the integrity of the Horizon system.
I said what, sorry?
I just read it out to you a few moments ago. You said that you didn't think that it posed a challenge to the integrity of the Horizon system, and you didn't think it was a significant issue.
Can we bring that up again, please?
What, the email
Yeah.
or the statement?
No, the actual email that you're saying where I've said that?
Certainly, we can have it again. It's 00...
Cross purposes. I think Ms. Page's point is that in your witness statement, you are saying that you weren't aware that the Castleton case was particularly significant. That's my paraphrase. And yet you're saying the opposite is her contention in that email. So which would you like to see, your witness statement or the email?
The email, please, sir.
Right.
Thank you. That's FUJ 0015. Oh, yes, here we go. And it's page 3. And if we zoom in on the paragraph that says, given this is a, quotes, test case, and that the integrity of the Horizon system is being challenged, my own opinion is X, Y, and Z. Does that not make it clear that you understood that this was a test case challenging the integrity of the Horizon system?
Yes, it does.
And indeed, that's why you thought it necessary to involve Gareth Jenkins, the distinguished engineer.
Yeah, I'm suggesting that that might be the case, yes.
Rather than just asking for a statement from Penny Thomas or Andy Dunks, one of the usual characters. You want it to be a proper expert who responds to this, don't you?
Well, Penny Thomas and Andy Dunks used to provide the standard ARQ data, and Mr. Jenkins used to provide more detailed evidence on cases. So, again, I'm just trying to be helpful in helping Mr. Dilly get the information that he'd asked for.
You knew this was a case about the integrity of the Horizon system that was being closely watched across the business, didn't you, Mr. Ward?
No, I didn't know anything about the case at all, really. All I was doing was being asked to get the ARQ data, and I was just trying to help. It really wasn't a significant case as far as I was concerned. It was one of the first cases I'd heard about, and I was just trying to help, that was all.
Mr. Ward, the report was duly produced. I won't take you to it to save time. I'll hope that you'll take it from me that on the first page of that report, which was sent to you in close to final form, there is a reference to a known fault in the Horizon system. Now, you were the liaison point for hundreds of requests for Horizon data. Had you ever heard of, quotes, known faults?
No, I hadn't, no.
The fact that there were known faults in the system suggests that the process you were responsible for should have included searching for relevant known faults, should it not?
I should certainly have highlighted it, yeah. I should have escalated it up, yeah.
Did you ask any questions about known faults, either of Fujitsu or anyone else?
I can't recall, no. I really can't recall. It's going back so far.
Mr. Ward, did you know anything about the known error log?
No, not at all.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Ms. Page, just so that I'm clear, the part of Mr. Ward's witness statement that you want me to look at in this context of the email is the last sentence of paragraph 62, is that right?
That's right. That's right, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Who's next?
So it's me, Miss Patrick.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Ward. My name's Angela Patrick. I represent, with Mr. Maloney, a number of sub-postmasters who were prosecuted, convicted, and have since had their convictions overturned. I want to look at one topic, and it's going back to something that Mr. Beer asked you about a lot. If you remember this morning, he asked you about a document, the 2007 policy, which covered prosecution support.
Mm-hmm.
We can bring it up, but let's try not to start with. I just want to refresh your memory about that document. I think you agreed that document that Mr. Beer showed you, the document behind prosecution support that Fujitsu was providing to the Post Office, it was an important document, wasn't it?
It was.
And it dealt with things like the obtaining of the message store by Fujitsu and the events log from the message store. And you discussed this morning two different kinds of events with Mr. Beer, didn't you?
Yeah.
I'll do this very quickly, but I think you looked at knowing that an ARQ request would cover the obtaining of some information from the message store, wouldn't it?
So my understanding of the ARQ request was that we would get transaction and event logs from Fujitsu, and if we asked for a supporting statement, they would provide that statement and provide the standard paragraphs at the end, attesting to the sort of system working correctly.
If we could just to refresh your memory, it might help to get where I'm coming from. If we can look at the 2007 policy very, very briefly, can we look at FUJ 00122366? And I'm looking at page 17. At the bottom of the page of page 17, please. And you can see there, generate message store. Can you see that?
I can see that, yes.
A message store of selected files will be initiated on the operator's local machine using the files extracted to the audit server. And then here's what happens next with the message store. Once the message store has been successfully generated, the R-Query tool shall be used to select the files as per the search criteria set out in the ARQ. So that sounds very technical, but do you accept it suggests that search criteria exist in the ARQ, and what you get from the message store is what's set out in the search criteria? Yeah, you're nodding, Mr. Ward. You agree?
I would agree, yes.
So you don't get the whole of the message store, you get what you asked for in the ARQ.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you can just scan through, since we've got this open, just so that we're being absolutely clear we're all on the same page. If we scan through the next page, page 18, we can see different kinds of prosecution support, which you went through with Mr. Beer this morning, included Horizon Help Desk logs, non-polling reports. Next page, you see fault logs, and so on, witness statement of fact, and then, again, expert evidence.
Yep.
That was all dealt with this morning.
Yeah.
Now, I want to look at the history of this document a little. So if we can go to page 2, I'd be very grateful. And we can see there, if we scroll down a little, we can see reviewers' names, and if we scroll a little bit further, you don't appear there, but if we scroll a little bit further up, we can see the history in the box at the top of the page. And we can see the first draft of this document, a version 0.1, dates from, I think the dating that Fujitsu used, I think it's the 2nd of November.
Okay.
2002, but I'm sure somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. It could be, oh no, I think it's the 11th of February at this point. 11th of February. If we can bring up a document, just I'd be grateful. FUJ 00159 please. So I think I've got the wrong reference. I apologise very much to the document management team. It's 152189. I apologise. FUJ 00152 I apologise, sir, for the delay. That's my note.
Oh, no, that's all right.
Thank you. If we just zoom in a little, we can see this is a document headed 11th February 2002. Now, I'm going to take this slightly quickly. It's headed, you can remember that date, 11th February.
Yeah.
I'd mixed it up thinking it was November. Network banking, management of prosecution support. Now, I'm going to try to deal with this quite quickly, if I can. You can see on the front page there, it says draft. If we can go to page 1 a little bit further down than we can see here, we see you under reviewed by Post Office, Graham Ward. Is that likely to be you?
Yes, that's me.
Can we turn to page 2, please? And we scroll a little bit, yeah, we can just about see you there on the page. Approval authorities, Mr. Ward. Post Office Limited Internal Crime Policy and Standards Manager.
Yeah.
Is it likely at this point, February 2002, you were still in that role?
Yep, if that's what it says, yeah.
Right. And although this refers to network banking, if we can scroll down to page 7, and I won't read this all out, but if we scroll down a little bit further on the page, I'd be grateful. It deals with the, in some detail, so I won't read it out. Somebody will correct me if I'm wrong. There being an arrangement where, at this time, for general litigation support, there wasn't a contractual arrangement in place. It was being done subject to a without prejudice agreement, but there were arrangements in the contract for network banking.
Okay.
So if we scroll a little bit further, we can go to page 13. We see you again here named as the point of contact.
Yeah.
In 2002, likely that you were expected to be the point of contact in relation to requests for data then?
That would seem so, yeah.
Yeah, and if we go to page 16, see, taking this very quickly, a flowchart very similar to the one that Mr. Beer took you to this morning.
Yeah.
And again, message store on the left, help desk, polling logs and fault log review on the right. Can you see that there?
I can, yeah.
I think we can agree this looks like an earlier iteration, an earlier draft.
It does, yeah.
Of the document from today. And I won't scan through the rest. We'll go through them in some detail in a minute. I want to look at two things in detail. Can we look down at page 22? Now, you see this is the section that deals with expert witness. And you can scroll down, you see one of the things about the middle of the box there, you can see there's a list. Expert witnesses could be called upon to provide, for example, and one of the things there, if you can see the second one from the bottom, one of the things the expert witness was going to do in 2002 was the provision of specific Tivoli and other system security event files. Can you see that, Mr. Ward?
I can see that.
Could this explain why you were familiar with Tivoli events later in 2005? You'd been involved in this drafting exercise?
It might be where I'd heard it, yeah.
Okay.
I really can't remember now.
And if we scroll, you don't have to scroll, you can see it. If we go to the very bottom of that part of the draft, I'm looking at the last paragraph, it says, support in excess of 15 days shall be considered on the production of an appropriate change request. So they're essentially saying, we'll give you up to 15 days expert support, but only if you give us a change request. Is that fair, Mr. Ward?
That's what it says.
And again, if you scroll down to 8.2 at the bottom, you get 15 days on a change request. Again, that's for experts going to court. Can you see that there, Mr. Ward?
Yes, I can see that.
Now, if we scroll back up to page 18, I want to look at the analysis of faults briefly. If we scroll to the bottom of the page, and I've asked you to look at 7.2.3, and if you can just bear in mind, we just looked at 8.1, if you remember.
Yep.
Bear in mind 8.1 and now 7.2.3. And you can see the analysis of event and fault logs. And you can see any relevant pinnacles identified in PowerHelp logs will be reviewed through Pinnacle Client to ensure that any recorded faults would not hinder the outlet's performance or otherwise affect the integrity of Audit Archive from which the record queries are extracted. And then it says, the Pinnacle log will detail the error relating to the site, equipment and or service in question. Were you aware at that point what a Pinnacle was?
No, I'd had no idea.
But being involved in this drafting exercise, do you accept you would have read the document?
Yes, I must have read the document, but I don't think I would have understood most of it.
Now, Pinnacle log will detail the error relating to the site, equipment or the service in question. Now, the Pinnacle log, does that sound important to the understanding of faults in the system?
It would sound so, yeah. It would sound as though it's important, yeah.
Can you recall whether, when you were involved in this exercise, you asked for more information about what the Pinnacle log was? No,
I don't recall.
Okay, I'm going to move on from this draft. I want to see where we go next. Can we look at FUJ 00152-501? And I'll wait for it to come up, Mr. Ward. Thank you. And if we could zoom in a little, because it's very small writing. And first of all, I want to look at the box at the very top. You can see that it's a quality review comment sheet, and it's ICL Pathways document. I want you to ignore the date on the the right-hand side for now, and look at the boxes. It's referring to this document, the document we looked at, the draft, Network Banking Management Prosecution Support, and you can see the date, 11th February 2002 matches. Can you see that there on the left, Mr. Ward?
I don't, yeah.
And on the right, it gives a deadline for comments by the 22nd of February 2002. And we can see below there the reviewer's name in section B. Can you see that, Mr. Ward?
Yes, I can.
The name's Jan Holmes. Do you remember Jan Holmes?
I remember the name, yeah, but I can't recall much else about him. I'm afraid it's, well,
Yeah.
Was it 22 years ago?
Okay. And you can see on the right-hand side, his review was on the 12th of February. I'd like to look at some of his comments, if you don't mind. If we can scroll down a little so that we can see box C, I'd be very grateful. Thank you. Now, if we can look at page 2 of this document, so going over the page, we see these are his comments. If we can see, first of all, I'd like to look at the box which is the reference to 7.2.3. If you remember, I asked you to remember 7.2.3. That was the section of the document which dealt with fault analysis.
Yep.
He says, this is lining yourself up for a heap of work. Better, I'd have thought, to analyse the Tivoli events log only. Now, you see that there?
I can see that.
You're saying, oh, look at what, let's not bother with what you're proposing. Shall we just look at Tivoli events? Is that the effect of what he's saying?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've seen this. I mean, this document was sent to me in the bundle last Friday.
We'll come to that. I want to ask you a question
Okay.
about whether you saw it or didn't.
All right.
And he's saying, let's do Tivoli events when we look at fault analysis, isn't he?
That's what he's saying, yeah.
Let's not leave it to the special expert to look at Tivoli events. Let's do it at this stage, at 7.2.3, isn't he?
Yes.
Does it look like he's trying to save Fujitsu some work in this comment?
Well, that's what it looks like to me, yeah.
And if you'd read it, would that be a cause of concern for you if you were the reviewer for Post Office?
Yeah, it should be, yeah.
And it's clear on this, in any event, on fault analysis, that in 2002, Mr. Holmes thinks Tivoli events are important, doesn't he?
Yep, that's what he's saying, yeah.
Okay, and if we scroll down a little, I want to look at his comment 2 down on 7241. He says, Graham, now, you're the reviewer here. I'm going to look at the comment itself in a minute. You're the reviewer for the Post Office. Is it likely these comments were being directed to you?
Well, I would imagine there must be, yeah. I didn't see any other. Well, there was...
Other Graham. There wasn't another Graham on the list, was there?
No, it's just me.
So, Graham, on 007 witness statement, Tony Utting, and Tony Utting at this point, would he have been your boss? Or somebody else in the security team?
I think it would have been Tony Utting, yeah. Or may have been Ray Pratt at that time, I can't remember.
Yeah, Tony Utting advised me to remove any parts of the statement that I did not personally know. Specifically, it was some historical stuff about what existed in post offices. Have you got this in your standard WS, or is it removed? Now, this is an aside from the draft. I just want to ask you about that comment. This refers to some post office advice to Fujitsu to remove anything from a witness statement that they did not personally know. Did you think that was good advice?
Yeah.
Advice that you'd have adopted when you were in the case manager role?
Yeah, absolutely.
And if there were any later statements provided from Fujitsu under your watch, would you have expected the person giving the statement to say if it included anything of which they did not have personal knowledge?
No, they should. Anything in their statement should be their own personal knowledge, yeah.
And if they were relying on something somebody else had told them, somebody else's information, they'd said, like, I got Dave to tell me about this thing. Would you expect that to be in their witness statement? Who told them the thing they were relying on?
Well, they should, they should include that, yeah.
Okay, that's the side point. If we can move down a little bit, can we look down 2 boxes to what he says about 8.1 and the expert witness? And if you remember, they were talking about a 15-day sort of cap, but only when there was a change request. And he says, Graham, I think if I were doing this, I'd separate the work into that which you could reasonably fix the duration for, and that's what you couldn't. So the fixed duration, you're on fairly safe ground when it comes to turnaround, and you can be more certain about what we can achieve. I wouldn't have any inclusive time to deal with that over which you have no control, i.e. expert witness stuff. My preference would be to declare all of this outside the normal process and subject to a CR, a presumed change request, on a case-by-case basis. And then below he says the same for an expert going to court. Now, Graham, reading that, is that a comment you think is directed to you or to somebody else?
Yeah, I think it must have been directed to me, yeah.
Can you remember these comments being sent to you?
No, not at all. I mean, no, it's 20 plus years ago. I can't remember, I'm sorry.
And just for a bit of background, at this point in 2002, you say you vaguely remember Mr. Holmes. Do you remember ever being told that he'd been involved in an EPOS task force looking at large numbers of pinnacles and problems in the Horizon EPOS system before 1999?
No.
Would have been important information for you to have if you were negotiating policy on how Fujitsu would look at faults in the system?
I don't ever recall negotiating on policy. I know I've been sent as a review here, but I was new into the internal crime policy role.
We looked at that draft, you were listed as the approval authority, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, yeah. I'm surprised at being the approval authority, but...
Would you have had the authority at that point in that role you were in 2002 to approve policy?
I don't think I would have had the approval authority at the grade I was working at, no.
This might help. If we move to the next draft, it's one...
Hold on a minute, Ms. Patrick, where are we going? We're now in overtime, so to speak.
So I'm afraid that I'd said 20 minutes. I think I've had 10 so far.
No, you've had a bit longer, but who's coming after you? I said I was finishing. That's the point.
I apologise, sir. I think essentially we can move on to the final drafts.
Right.
The final draft, if we move to 152205, sorry, Fujitsu, so FUJ 00152-205. I apologise, sir. And if we see here, if we scroll to page 2, if we scroll a little bit further, we see the date at the top is November 2002. We see there you aren't an approval authority anymore. You're an optional reviewer issued for information. Can you see that?
I can see that, yeah.
And the names above, we see Jan Holmes. Can you see any other people there from the post office?
There's no names from the post office that I can see, no.
Okay. And we see an asterisk next to your name, and the asterisk designates you returned comments. Can you remember if you returned comments?
If it says I did, then I would have done, yeah.
Okay. Now, I'm trying to save time as much as we possibly can. Can we go to page 18, please? Sorry, page 20, I apologise. If we scroll to the bottom, we can see 7.2.3, the approved version. We see the reference to pinnacles, but there's no reference to Tivoli events, is there?
No.
Okay. And if we scroll to page 23, If we scroll a little bit further down, we see the expert witness statement section. You see there again, Tivoli events and other security event files stay with the expert. Can you see that, Mr. Ward?
I can see that, yeah.
And again, at the bottom, of the very bottom of the page, we see the 15 days goes, and instead it's to be agreed on a case-by-case basis and dealt with in accordance with the change control procedure.
Yeah.
So it looks as though Mr. Holmes' recommendation has been accepted. It'll be a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I just want to look back at the 2007 policy very briefly.
In 1 minute, Ms. Patrick.
So if we can look at page 90, no, sorry, if we can look at page 19, please. Can you see at the top of page 19, 7.2.3?
Not there yet. Yes.
So this is still the 2002 document, I'm sorry. It's FUJ 00122 If we don't need to bring it up, Mr. Ward, we can look at it. I'm looking at it now, and it says, if requested, all Power Help calls will be reviewed to identify any recorded faults that might infect the integrity or admissibility of the audit archive from which ARQs are extracted. The reference to Pinnacles and the Pinnacle log is removed. Do you know why?
Got no idea at all.
And again, there's no event references to Tivoli events in 2007.
No, I've got no idea.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Ms. Patrick.
Thank you, sir.
Does anyone else think they're going to ask any questions?
Sir, I was going to ask questions. I was going to take 5 minutes. Can I undertake to do it in 3?
Does it actually relate to a client, Mr. Steen, or is it of a more general nature?
I have to say it relates to clients generally rather than an individual client.
Well, I think I've heard enough from this witness to form a proper impression of the crucial points. All right?
Very well, sir.
So we'll now adjourn until tomorrow morning. Thank you, Mr. Ward, for answering all those questions and coming to the inquiry. So, Mr. Beer, we have closing submissions tomorrow, yes?
Yes, commencing at 10 a.m. tomorrow.
All right, see you all then.
Thank you very much.